Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin. We are on lesson 9 of our Ilmul Akhlaq, our lessons on morality or ethics. And we are going to continue talking about the vices and virtues related to the faculty of Aqliya. I said there are four very important faculties or potentials in the human soul which are important to us in the study of Akhlaq. They are the faculty of Aqliya, the intellectual faculty. They are the faculty of anger. They are the faculty of shahwiya. That's the faculty that has to do with the desires, the appetitive desires for food and drink, the sexual desires. And the faculty of wahmiya, the imaginative faculty. Now, all of these four faculties have virtue, which is its balance, which produces virtue, and they have vices. If it's in its negligence or excess or anything in between, it'll produce some kind of vice. So today we're going to talk about the golden mean of al-quwa al-aqliya. The golden mean means the moderation, the balance of that faculty that we are referring to. That balance is called a virtue. So today our topic is about the virtue or the golden mean of al-quwa al-aqliya. The virtue of the aqliya faculty in the practical akhlaq kind of discussions as far as a virtue is knowledge and wisdom, ilm wal hikmah. So from the perspective of akhlaq, the virtue of the potential of intellect, the intellectual potential, aqliya, is knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge and wisdom are amongst the most important and most beneficial qualities for the human being to obtain. If you look at all the different things that the human soul can obtain, what are the most important things for the human soul to acquire? Knowledge and wisdom are the most important things. They're amongst the most important things. And the most important thing above all things is ma'rifah of Allah. Knowledge of Allah. Knowledge about Allah. Of course, Allah is not limited. He is absolute. He is necessary being. But we want to know the correct understanding from the human perspective about Allah. And we want to become people who witness, know, love Allah. So knowledge and wisdom are amongst the most important and beneficial qualities for human to obtain. People seek knowledge at various different levels. People find it a perfection to know things. Even forgers will fake knowing things because it's seen as a kind of perfection. They're going to be able to do something by saying they know something. So knowledge and wisdom are very, very important to the human soul and very, very important to obtain. It is through knowledge and wisdom that one gets closer to Allah the Exalted. And it's not that Allah is distant from us. No, Allah is closer to us than our jugular veins. Allah is closer to us than our own nafs. But us through our heedlessness, through our inattention, through our sins. We have distanced ourselves from knowing Allah, from realization of Allah the Exalted. So through knowledge and wisdom, one gets closer to Allah and reaches lofty levels of realization. The more mankind learns and practices what he is taught as well, the more the human advances and develops. So the more and more that we learn and we practice what we learn, the more we will advance and develop. We learn about the correct line of Islam, the correct belief system. We put it into practice. This is the spiritual path to develop. We will advance and develop to more loftier levels if we put in reality the correct line of Islam into practice in ourselves. So we find in the Holy Quran in Surah 2, Ayat 269, Yuti al-hikmata man yasha'u wa man yuta al-hikmata fakad utiya khairan kathira wa ma yadhakkaru illa ulul bab. This ulul bab, I said, it means those people of intellect, those intellectual people. Ulul bab, it means like the kernel inside the walnut. But this is what it's used for. So you see in the transinterpretation here, the transinterpreter of the Holy Quran has translated as men of understanding mind, ulul bab. So this ayat, this noble ayat of the Holy Quran, it transinterprets as, he grants wisdom to whom he pleases. Yuti al-hikmata man yasha'u. He gives hikmah to whomsoever he wills. So let's stop for a moment. It's not up to people who are considered those who have hikmah. It's not people who decide who gets the certificate of the knowledge from Allah. It's Allah gives hikmah, man yasha, to whosoever he wants, whosoever he wills. وَمَنْ يُتَى الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ يُؤْتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. And whoever is granted wisdom, he indeed is given great good, much good. خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا, much good. وَمَا يَذَكَّرُ إِلَّا أُولُو الْبَابِ. And none but men of understanding mind, none but men of understanding remember. Then we have in Surah 29, Ayat 43. وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. And these examples, we set them for mankind. And none understand them. وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. Except the learned, they transinterpret best. Except the learned. So see how important knowledge is and wisdom is. So that is the golden mean of the faculty of Aqliyah. From the perspective or the aspect of ilm al-akhlaq, that is to have knowledge and wisdom. has a moral quality. Now, what about some of the vices related to al-qudwa al-aqliya? This is one of the big vices that maybe many people throughout history, they have had this vice in them. This one is called compound ignorance. Jal Moraka. This is that type of ignorance where the person who is ignorant is not knowing something and is unaware of the fact that they do not know. So they think they know. They think they know, but they really don't know. So they're unaware of the fact that they do not know. Hence, they think they know. This is a fatal malady. This is a fatal illness. This one can ruin you. This is a very dangerous sickness. To not know and think you know. So how do we cure it? We find this disease in someone, or we find it in ourselves. It's possible that we develop this in ourselves, that there's a particular matter, and we have jal murakab about it. We have compound ignorance about it. We think we know, but in reality, we don't. We're misinformed. We misthought. We didn't check our thought. We didn't investigate, critically think it enough. So how do we cure this disease in ourselves? How do we cure this vice, this malady? Its cure can be very, very difficult. Curing this malady can be very hard to do, can be very difficult. This is due to the fact that this person is not viewing him or herself as having any shortcoming. They're not viewing him or herself as having a shortcoming in themselves. They think they know. They don't see themselves as having an imperfection in this area, as having a vice. And when a person doesn't think they have a problem, then they lack motivation to improve. They lack motivation to do anything against it. One of the first steps of realizing you have a problem and fixing your problem is to realize and admit to yourself that you have a problem. So it's very difficult to cure this disease because the person who is afflicted with it thinks that they know, but they really don't. So they're not motivated to change. They're not motivated to pick up their feet and move them in the direction of reality. Move them in the direction of the right line. Move them in the direction of felicity. So therefore, this person remains ignorant. This person can remain ignorant until the end of their life, which is very, very detrimental, very, very harmful, and not in his or her benefit at all, because they lacked the chance to know the reality of this. Maybe, God forbid, they rejected something that was true because their compound ignorance. They ended up rejecting something true. Like they thought that a certain fatwa was correct. Because why? Their marja told them. And he did his best efforts. And he was convinced. They were convinced. But then when someone came and told them the other view, they rejected it. And in reality, the right view was this other view. And they end up rejecting the view of the Ahlul Bayt unknowingly. It would be better for them if they accept the view of the Ahlul Bayt. The right line is the correct way to felicity, is the way to bahja wa saada. So following the Ahlul Bayt, the way they really taught us, is very important for spiritual development. So to cure this, one must find the roots of this illness. You want to cure compound ignorance? Look for where its roots are. Look for where its roots are. Look for the roots of this illness in oneself. If the cause is compound ignorance, if this is due to distorted thinking, then this person should learn some specific and precise sciences. So when he looks inside himself or herself, and they find that the cause of this compound ignorance is that they have distorted thinking, they were not thinking properly about this matter, then what this person should do to cure himself is go and study some specific and precise sciences. That's what's advised to do. This should, inshallah, be a means to free his or her mind from it and push it toward clarity and push it toward its golden mean. Push it toward the correct line of approach. Hence, here what will happen is Jal Murakab, that compound ignorance, will be transformed, will be changed into Jal Basit. Jal Basit is simple ignorance. Simple ignorance is when you don't know something and you know you don't know. Now this, the cure for this, you seek knowledge. But you at least know that you don't know it. You could honestly admit, I don't know. So this is what would happen here, is that compound ignorance would be changed into simple ignorance. And this sick person can then be motivated now because they now realize that they don't know. They're not under this delusion or illusion that they know when they really don't. Now they can stimulate the motivation within their souls, the determination to make the footsteps, to walk on the line, to walk on the rocky road in search and seeking the knowledge. So now they can seek the knowledge. They can seek the right view. If, however, the cause of this compound ignorance is related to the method the person is using to reason. The other one was because of distorted thinking. They have the wrong perceptions, the wrong ideas, the wrong approach. This one is the whole methodology upon which they are using to think with, to approach the matter, is not the correct methodology. So if the cause is the method the person is using to reason with, what this person should do is they should compare his or her reasoning with that of expert researchers. Look at what the expert researchers say. Study their different views or their views. And here one may discover that they made a mistake. They may discover by looking at how experts go through it, maybe they answered his mistake in thinking, or maybe they got a different view towards it. Maybe they got a refutation to it. And you could check it. Maybe they couldn't refute it. You could check it and see, did they answer it or not? So here, one may discover that a person made mistakes in their method of thinking. Now, if the cause is blind following, call that, this is taqleed in the sense of just following somebody. Now, yes, we have taqleed in the fiqh. We developed that a marja, that he is qualified, expert enough to do taqleed to him, and that gives us certitude that we can rely on his research as being an expert. Then he is supposed to have that kind of certitude for everything. He should, because he should have reached a research level where on the day of judgment that's the only place he could have gone. He couldn't do more. That's where he should be. That's where he'd be safe. But sometimes people blindly follow in other matters where it's not right to do so. Like, we should have a rational understanding about Allah existing. We need to look for reasons behind it. We need to look for an intellectual argument that will give us some kind of itminan, some kind of certitude. They'll bring us to a level of relying on a rational evidence. Some areas taqleed is allowed in. Some areas taqleed's not right in. So there's different areas, but that's a whole discussion that could be had and a research on its own. But we'll keep it simple here. So if the cause of this compound ignorance was blindly following somebody in it, like you believe that this was the right view just because your friend said so. So you blindly followed your friend. He's not an expert. Your friend, he's not a researcher like this. So you blindly follow. So how should a person get rid of this one? He should seek to remove that blind following. He should seek to remove that blind following. Question it. I want to research the matter. My friend told me that such and such is the case of the reality about the belief system. I want to research the matter. I want to see the view of the Quran as example. Is this really how Quran approaches it? So that is compound ignorance sentence. So we have this vice. People may have this vice of compound ignorance. The next vice that we have is we have the vices related to quwa al-aqliya called shak and hayra. Al-hayra is confusion, like you're wandering somewhere in a confused state. So amongst the vices that may afflict the faculty of aqliya are the vices of shak, doubt, and hayra, perplexity or confusion. These vices cause mankind to be unable to distinguish between what is right and wrong. Being in a state of perplexity, hayra, confusion, and doubt, shak, that disables a person to be able to distinguish between the right and the wrong. This disease is caused by the appearances of many contradictory evidences. When a person realizes there's many contradictory evidences, and these contradictory evidences confuse the person and place him or her in the position where they are unable to reach a definite conclusion. So it's fine to see the evidences, and even if they're contradictory, you may find a solution. Many times in the fiqh at the higher levels, at the Bath al-Kharij level, they find seemingly contradictory hadith and they find ways to reconcile them. They bring them together. Even when we look at the Quran, we bring verses together and compare. So, sure, we could reconcile things under an approved and correct method that's going to be justifiable on the day of judgment. But sometimes people see many different contradictory evidences. They don't know about these ways to reconcile or how to deal with things as an expert. And even maybe at an expert's level, they get very confused. It's very possible. And they cannot reach a definite conclusion about the matter. So how do you cure this? How do you cure this kind of perplexity or hayra and shak and doubt? To cure this disease, the person must first consider axiomatic principles of ilm mantiq, of logic. Axiomatic principles of logic. This axiomatic knowledge, these axiomatic principles of logic are obvious principles. They're like self-evident things. Then we have unobvious knowledge. So you have to look at those kind of axiomatic things. And we define that in ilm mantiq, and you go there to see the whole lesson on ilm badihi and nadari, and these things. So like the law of non-contradiction, a self or an axiomatic principle is the law of non-contradiction. Two things cannot be the opposite, contradictory of each other at the same time, same place. Is human, is not human. Cannot be the same. This is a law of non-contradiction. The principle of the whole is greater than its parts. This is another axiomatic principle. Law of identity. One thing cannot be another thing in the same person, same thing, same location, same time, all these things. Two different things cannot be the same thing. Law of identity. This is another obvious knowledge, obvious principle. So this person, to cure this disease of perplexity and doubt, they go to these. They go to these axiomatic principles. And this person will then base their reasoning upon these principles. So they'll try to find a cure to their problem in axiomatic principles. And in turn, this person will be realizing that the truth is one truth. And hence all other conclusions besides the true one are actually false. In this way, a person may cut through the spider web of contradictory thoughts that bewilder and perplex him or her. Now, the opposite of these vices of jal and al-hayra and shak is yaqeen. But we're going to talk more about yaqeen in next week's lesson, inshallah. The opposite of these vices that I mentioned, ignorance, perplexity or confusion, al-hayra, shak, doubt, is yaqeen. Yaqeen we can translate as certainty, certain conviction, which is in accordance with reality. So the person will not be shaken by the doubts because they are having conviction, they're having certitude. That person who will face those doubts, they will not be shaken by them. In that matter, no doubt would shake me. That's what certitude brings. That's what certain conviction will bring. When you have a certain conviction of a thing, no matter what doubts are brought to you, you will not be shaken by it. So when a person has conviction, they will not be shaken by the doubts. However big the doubt is, however big or small it is, it won't matter. Now, before we go, some signs of people who have complete certitude. And this is where we'll end after this, and then we'll continue with certitude, inshallah, in the next lesson. First is tawakkul of Allah. One who has certitude, they have reliance on Allah the Exalted. They rely on Allah in their affairs, and they give attention in one's soul towards the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says you can translate it loosely as the contentment of Allah, but there's a theological discussion here. So the first sign of a person who is having certitude is that they have tawakkul of Allah. They rely on Allah. Yes, Allah has given us the ability of ikhtiyar to make choices between the right and the wrong things. And this world is a test. Allah has created the life and the death as a test to test which one of us is best in deeds. And Allah has created us for His worship. All this is in line with to attain the mercy of Allah the Exalted. But we must, if we become people of certitude about Allah the Exalted, we will have trust in Allah. We will have reliance on Allah, not on ourselves. We're only functioning in a way that we are depending on Allah the Exalted entirely. Allah has given us the ability to make a choice, and we get either punished or rewarded for our choice. But Allah the Exalted is the only true Mudabiru al-Amur. Allah is the only true Allah. Allah has power over everything. You go look in Dua Kumail. Just the first several lines of it will enlighten you with this kind of idea. So a person who has certitude, they have tawakkul of Allah. And you could raise in levels of tawakkul. The second sign of a person who has certitude is they have humility before Allah the Exalted. They are humble people to Allah. They're humble. Both batini humility and zahiri. What's batini and zahiri? Humility. Inner humility in their souls, it doesn't need to be spoken. It's in themselves. They're humble in front of Allah. Outer humility, they act humbly outwardly. So they have inner and outer humility at all times, under all circumstances, and obedience to the commands of Allah, even to the smallest things. They care. Of course, we can view certitude as having levels as well. And hence, we can work towards developing higher levels of certitude. And we'll talk about those, some discussion on certitude in the next week. So at this, I will end the lesson. Wa lakru duwana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.